If anybody thinks payments in Africa are not 1% built, you are lying. Like, you know you are lying. Because every single time, as you're building you're building any tech company in Africa, you automatically become a fintech company, not by choice, but by nature of the market. So many things are broke. I have friends who are starting healthcare companies, like let's say data, like reconciliation for healthcare. And then all of a sudden, a big challenge is collection of payments there, and then they can't even get the true data of like the payments happening. They end up building like some sort of light infrastructure for healthcare payments, and then they're a fintech company. All of a sudden, they started to be a data healthcare company, but became a fintech company over time. So I do believe it's 1% built. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done across the continent. I think a majority of the investments that are going to happen across the continent over the next 15 years, number one will still be fintech. Why is cross-border payments in Africa so hard? How long do you have? I think many things. I think, number one, most people don't talk about the dollar shortage, which is insane to me, right? Africa's a net import region. We import more than we export. So every country, majority of the countries in Africa have a trade deficit. So if you look at Kenya, for example, 2021 import value 23 billion, export value 7 billion. If you add remittance volume of 4 billion, you have an $11.5 billion trade deficit. So I think that's one where it's really big, where makes it really hard. Banks, for example, between Tanzania and Kenya that are just doing transactions have to convert money from Tanzanian shillings to dollars wire via SWIFT to Kenya dollars back to Kenyan shillings. I'm like, okay, why can't we just swap or do netting directly? I think I'm saying it really quickly, but it's way more complicated than that. So I think there's many things in line that make it really difficult. I think a dollar shortage is a big one that keeps payments really expensive to the African continent and will be that way for a very long time. People always say, well, can the other remittance companies exist? Of course, and a lot of them will come. There's going to be a lot more companies after Nala doing the exact same thing as Nala, and that will do well. The second one is payment reliability, which most people don't talk about, think that it's already resolved. I will tell you, with some of the biggest partners we work with across the continent, reliability rates fluctuate between 70% to 85%. Some more context on that. We work in 11 markets across Africa with some of the biggest payout partners who are even here at this event. And we measure everybody's success rate directly every single month. Every 5 seconds, we do a test to see like, okay, what is the success on reliability? Between May 2023 to January 2024, the last 6 months, we averaged 25 partner incidences per month in the last 6 months. 25, average. So you can imagine every morning I wake up, I'm like, okay, I wonder which payout partner is going to be down today. Like, that's literally the discussion and like what we think about. So every day I get messages from customers directly. And like whenever there's a delayed transaction, I read these personally and I send them to my team and I look at the data myself. So for example, over here, I got a text message from one of my friends who's been using Nala for 2 years. So for context, our retention rate after a year is 61%. Compared to a lot of our competitors, that's way higher. Right, so the number one reason customers leave Nala is because of reliability, where they had one bad transaction. See, everybody thinks it's FX rates. FX rates gets the customer into the funnel. But once they start transacting, as long as you're within like 0.5% of the next best competitor, it's good enough. People will stay. It's a sticky product. People will send money home every single month. Now, let me read this text message from this person right here. It says, bro, this is it. He posted a screenshot of a delayed transfer, and it was delayed for 2 days. This is it. Unfortunately, I'm done with Nala, and I'll take my small coins elsewhere. Completely unacceptable service and customer relations. Your reliability is garbage. I've recommended Nala to hundreds of people over the last 2 years, and I'm sad this is how we part ways. That's a text message this person sends me. And then I looked into it, and it was one of the payout partners who delayed the payment. And I looked into it, I was like, what happened? They're like, oh, our treasury person forgot to pre-fund your account on Friday, so we have to wait till Monday till the payment is dispersed. Now, this person has a hospital bill he's trying to pay for an aunt, and then Nala takes the blame for it. So I think until reliability increases, other global payments businesses will not even focus on investing in Africa. If we look at it, what are the major errors? There's like 11 errors that we get all the time. Like, let's say Dan was dispersing to Justin's account. Justin's account can only hold $10,000. Dan is sending $2,000. Justin has $9,800. Payment failed. Why? We don't know why. We call the disbursement partner, yo, what happened? Oh, I don't know. Why? Because there's layers of the onion. Like, this partner is built on top of this partner, is on this partner, on top of this partner, finally down to Justin's bank. So who messed up the transaction? We don't know. We have to wait till this person calls all of them. Then we finally find out later, oh, by the way, Justin's account was full. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me before Dan initiated the transaction in the first place? Right. So that's one of the errors. There's 11 errors we see most common. And I think if people, it's easier said than done. Dan built a payment aggregator business in Uganda before, sold it for a lot of money. He retired and then came back into the game. But, you know, I think there is so much more that needs to be built there. And we're just at the beginning stage of that. As you look at things directly, I think operationally, people assume that it's not just a tech issue, it's a whole operations ball game that has not been nailed across a lot of large infrastructure players. Infrastructure, I think, that's why I keep saying it's 1% built, because there is so much more that needs to be built, and that's a whole separate. And then, like, obviously regulation is one. You get licenses, you can go as deep as possible into the market, you can increase your reliability directly. So I think those are the big three categories I'd box it into.